play bad video games? I'm not asking. Listen, they need you, hopeless. These are rough times. If you don't take a moment to have some fun, you will go crazy. And one of the funnest things that you can do, and I mean this sincerely, is play bad video games. This is something I've been passionate about my whole career, but we gotta change the name, because good, bad, those aren't really accurate words. GARBO. Some games genuinely suck and you probably shouldn't waste your time, but sometimes you need that good GARBO, baby. Or at least I do. Sometimes I need that sweet, sweet GARBO. And how can you really appreciate greatness if you don't occasionally ride that pendulum swing to the other side? And my personal favorite flavor of good GARBO are the GARBO ports. Take a game that you know, maybe one that you love, and play the absolute worst version of it, because there is a landfill-sized heap of objectively terrible ports from a quality, artistic, or technical standpoint. But that doesn't mean you can't have a couple of minutes, maybe a couple of hours of some sick, twisted enjoyment. Hey, I'm Derek, it's me, Derek, and welcome to Stop Skeletons from Fighting. And in this video, we are going to discuss some legendary GARBO ports. What I like to call games that are not just that good GARBO, but they are GARBO amazing. But first, it is already June. We just hit the solstice, which means we are officially in summertime, baby. And you know what that means.
I want to go outside. Can we go outside? Oh my god, so bored. Hey, I just remembered we can go outside. Ugh, stop making videos and let's go outside.
Even as I'm recording this bit, he wants to go outside. You want to go outside, buddy? Is that it? That means you're gonna need some breathable, resilient, comfy clothes for those sunny walks at the park and sitting on the cool grass. And Fabletics has got you covered. They sent me a sample of their shorts and shirts with the gorgeous summer weather. This is the time to get with Fabletics' unique VIP program. With your first order, you get 80% off 5 items of clothing and 70% off the rest of your order when you sign up. As a VIP, you get up to 50% off. You also get a 2-piece outfit every month, or you can skip any month between the 1st and 5th without being charged. Like their clothing, the memberships are flexible. I love the fit of the training day tee. It was tight, but still breathable and super comfy. And check out these awesome red shorts. I'm loving these. And I'm sure Launchpad would be impressed too if he could see red. So if you're ready to get right for the summer dog walks of 2025, click the link in the description or go to fabletics.com/stopskeletons to get 80% off the whole site when signing up to be a VIP. We are gonna start by going way back almost to the very beginning with the Atari 2600, because when you talk about that legendary GARBO, you've got to bring up the arcade port, the mega million seller that was the original arcade port. Of course, I'm talking about Pac-Man. Who let this in here? Nah, get out of here. We talking about Space Invaders. This 1980 home port of the 1978 Juggernaut is, well, just like the infamous Pac-Man port, a very compromised version. You'll notice right away that it is super cramped, yet only 6x6 instead of the arcade's 5x11, so it's missing a fair amount of invaders. Not to mention, all the invaders were redesigned. I mean, who is this bunny rabbit looking weirdo at the top? And come on, No Hands Berserk here in the second row ain't even animating, he's just flipping. You can't fool me. Your area of movement is actually really cramped, and you do not have much time before the aliens are right in your face. There's no time to waste taking out the right side or the bottom row. By the 4th level, you don't even have cover. On the 5th level, they are only 1 row above you. Things escalate quickly. It has got none of the classic legendary audio. But the last guy will still give you a panic attack. There is a reason for the creative deviations though. Of course, hardware limitations.
The arcade had 11 invaders across, and to get this at 6 was an achievement.
And this started as a side project by sole developer Rick Maurer before Atari secured the IP. And then after the ink dried, Taito never assisted or got involved at all, leaving Maurer to wrap up all on his own.
You know, that's the thing that was different about video games back then. These are really one-man games, a few women. You did the entire game yourself. That means you did the programming, you did the graphics, you did the sound, and the game design. You did everything.
At the end of the day, though, it mostly works, in spite of being a pretty poor version of Space Invaders. I mean, it's no wonder it's one of the best-selling video games ever made, and is the game that made Atari the juggernaut of 1980s North America. I too often forget just how much of a mega hit Space Invaders was. Minecraft, GTA 3, Doom, Tetris, Pac-Man, they all stand on the shoulders of Space Invaders. Released in 1978, by some estimates, it was a billion-dollar franchise by the early 80s. Billion. In 1980s money. Pong was the first hit video game. Space Invaders was the first mega hit video game. And another record for Space Invaders, it was also the original killer app console hit in North America. It is well known that Atari was top dog in the early 80s console biz in North America. But this was the original console war. There was a lot of competition. I never actually knew what was the thing that put Atari on top. Well, it was Space Invaders. Full stop. There were untold dozens of clones, but this is the first time someone thought, hey, let's actually port a game. Let's get the IP. What if we had that name recognition? That might help move some product. Let's give that a shot, huh? Let's try that. As luck would have it, one of their developers, Rick Maurer, had already started working on a port of Space Invaders not too long ago.
And all of a sudden, the corporate hierarchy got all excited, and they came around and said, "Oh, let's start doing the Space Invaders." And, of course, that time I had about half done.
So Atari then went after Taito to get the IP for Space Invaders, and in 1980, Space Invaders sold 1.3 million copies, becoming what may be the first home console million seller and quadrupled the sales of the Atari 2600. Then in 1981, 2.9 million sold. 82, another 1.3 million sold. That is a 3-year run of 7-figure sales.
When we started, there were only like 400,000 consoles out there. So you can only sell about 400,000 Space Invaders. But not only did they buy the cart, but they went and bought 10 million consoles. And then if there were 10 or 20 million consoles out there, it was easy for the next group of games to sell 10 million.
In 4 years, Atari sold 6 million copies of Space Invaders. Now, famously, Pac-Man moved 7 million in 1982 alone, but look at this drop-off. The scan cuts off here, but while Atari was imploding, Old Spacey could not be stopped, and in 1984, outsold Pac-Man in its 5th year. You thought it was embarrassing that MK11 had higher player numbers than MK1? This is legendary longevity, and that is despite the fact that it's kind of a weak port. Still not impressed? Well, what if I told you that there is a thread that connects this port of Space Invaders with this port, the 3DO port of Doom? In 1980, a young burger Becky, yes, Rebecca Heinemann, became one of the world's first video game champions by scoring 165,200 points in an Atari Space Invaders tournament. She was able to parlay this win into ghostwriting not one, but 2 best-selling strategy guides and starting her long storied video game development career. A career that some 10 years later would have her solo developing the worst port of Doom in only 10 weeks. But tragically, this port has never been re-released. This game claims 112 different modes, but that really just breaks down to a handful of options that I don't know have appeared in other Space Invaders ports. Over the decades of the many versions of Space Invaders, have any of them had the option to have moving shields and zigzagging and fast-moving shots from invisible invaders? I don't know. It is a crazy hard way to play this game, and it would be a shame if this were the only version that had the option. Also, Rick Maurer did not get a cent of royalties, reportedly a one-time bonus of $2,000. But why do Pac-Man and E.T. always suck up all the air whenever the 2600 is brought up? Because Space Invaders is a Garbo amazing classic. Playing this is playing history, even if it's not the most authentic conversion. And actually, compared to E.T. and Pac-Man, I'd argue that this is actually good. Next, we need to revisit a classic, or a classic for this channel, because I found something that has made me appreciate this Garbo amazing masterpiece even more. We gotta return to the GBA port of Medal of Honor Underground. Can something be so objectively bad that it is actually good? As far as I'm concerned, that is exactly what you are looking at right now. If you're not new here, you know about this one. One of, if not the ugliest, poorly running shooters to have ever been shrink wrapped and sold in retail stores. It is beautiful, but I have only ever owned the cart. And something amazing was hiding in plain sight right on the box itself. Incorporates the same maps and levels as the original. What? Are you telling me the reason that this game looks the way it does is because it was trying to be a one-to-one port of the PS1 game? There's no way. You see, in the 90s, Steven Spielberg did what most men do when they've hit their late 40s and started their second marriage, and got really into history. Quite famously, World War II. One project among many was producing the 1999 PS1 shooter Medal of Honor, and it was going to be the most historically accurate, authentic shooter ever made. Fight World War II for the first time, the case says. Actual World War II veterans looking at that and thinking, hey, it was another hit for Spielberg, and of course spawned a sequel, Medal of Honor Underground, released just a year later. And from there, a franchise was born, which of course means the market demands GBA games. But I think developer Rebellion got a little lost in the sauce, taking that most authentic shooter ever thing way too seriously. Because when they ported MOH Underground to the GBA, they were going to port this game exactly to the GBA. When I learned this, I just had to compare and see for myself, and for fuck's sakes, the Maniacs did it. Or at least really tried to do it. This is also how I learned that this nondescript courtyard is supposed to be under the Eiffel Tower, and since the second level takes place in the Paris catacombs, these walls of brown smudge are supposed to be the famous walls of bone. Yes, those are supposed to be skeletons. This was 2002, still early on in the GBA's life, and most 3D games on GBA faked their 3D with like Mode 7, or were actually two-dimensional based like Doom, or if they went full 3D it was simple geometry like Driver 2, or really small areas like Monkey Ball. MOH Underground here tried to fully recreate a late era, actually pretty technically impressive 3D PS1 game. That is why this game looks the way it does. In fact, it's even more crazy than that. I gotta show you this. On the map, I am standing right here in front of the bridge underpass. Now, looking at the GBA footage, do you see those tiny brown blocks? Those are the buildings all the way across the courtyard here. Is there no draw distance cap in this game? Why would you do that? Would actually putting fog in the game be more work? This is a level of overachieving that I just have to applaud. I don't know. Yes, let's do this. Though maybe I'm the only one that's excited about this because, food for thought, the next MOH game on GBA, it was 2D. For the record, it is the only time the series was not an FPS. It was not first person and not 3D. Very interesting. So I did do a little digging, and looking at the credits, this team at Rebellion, their previous game was the GBA port of Midnight Club, and that was a more reasonable top-down perspective. But another team at Rebellion at the same time was working on the GBA port of Smuggler's Run. Were the teams competing with each other of who could make the bigger 3D GBA game? Or was it Steven Spielberg drunk with power? Who knows? This game is a total mystery to me. It has only 15 of the PS1's 21 levels, so they did have to rein it in some capacity. There were some compromises. Speaking of which, I had to stop myself from playing through both these games completely. Though it was very tempting, there are other games we have to get to. But 15 of 21 levels, that's still a wildly ambitious chunk remade and crammed into a GBA cart. Forever a GARBO amazing classic. The really wild thing about MOH Underground, full 3D games on portable machines, that was more of a DS and PSP thing. The DS launched with a Metroid Prime Hunters demo and a remake of Mario 64, and the PSP launched with Dynasty Warriors, Metal Gear Acid, Armored Core, and so on. Would you believe 2 proper FPS MOH games eventually came to the PSP, and Rebellion was nowhere near them? It was within your right to expect good 3D games on these machines. But I will never forget playing one game on my friend's PSP and thinking, damn, DS is done. Okay, I was way off on that prediction, but the game that blew me away was Burnout Legends. Seeing that for the first time, it was Burnout 3 Takedown in my hands on the go. Which isn't exactly true, but at the time, that is what it felt like. Because lest we forget Burnout, one of the most untouchable franchises in the history of gaming. Takedown, Revenge, Paradise, it's one of the all-time great hat tricks, arcade racing perfection that I think most would agree has still never been topped. Which one is top dog comes down to personal preference. There's really no wrong answer. Toss in a couple also great side games, some humble beginnings, a mobile game that apparently the Angry Birds people made, a fine digital-only spin-off,
Burnout Crash, Master, the Disaster.
and you have an almost spotless series that was killed off far too early. Well, spotless except for one. And no, I don't mean Crash or the mobile game. There is one Burnout that is truly that good Garbo, baby. And that is the DS port of Legends. Here it is, the absolute low point of Burnout. The audacity that the title of this game conjures the word legacy, when all it does is stain it. Absolutely zero sense of speed. This game just kind of gets blurry with boost. The camera pulls back and the game kind of runs slower. It's trying to blur to simulate going fast, but it's not working. And this is apparently 2-player on a single cart. I guess the 3D on the tracks themselves is alright. Bridges and tunnels and underpasses. Looks pretty good. But the damage. Okay, Burnout really made its name with the incredible car damage, but here, gravity just briefly vanishes and the textures change. That's it. Like, how can you look at this game's version of a takedown and not just laugh? Oh, and crash mode. You have to see the crash mode. Okay, that was a gold medal. I crushed it. To cleanse the palate, here's what the crash mode usually looks like. Again, this is just so funny. I don't know, I can't get mad at this. The AI is absolute trash. One of the great joys of this port is just watching them all pile up at the start of a race, which is impressive when you stop to notice that there is hardly any traffic, ever. And the computer players are almost magnetically attracted to the few vehicles that are actually on the road. I completed 20% of the game in just over an hour, but that was replaying a couple of tracks to make sure I got footage. I am confident that this is the easiest Burnout game ever made, and you could rip through it in 5 hours. Among the physically released games, Legends DS is one of only 2 Burnout games not handled by Criterion themselves. The other being EA UK handling Burnout Dominator, and they crushed it. This, however, was by Visual Impacts, who, if you look at their catalog, actually have some serious bona fides. 2 solid SSX ports on the GBA, and another GBA stunner, Kill Switch. But they'd only made one DS game before Burnout, Ford Racing 3. I guess there was a Ford Racing 1 and 2. But how does that look? Yeah, can I get a hell yeah? And then they wouldn't touch a DS game for 2 years. Okay, so something happened here. So I asked my friend and car idiot, their words, Kacey, if they knew anything about this. And because this is just one of her areas of expertise, she pointed something else out to me. Need for Speed Most Wanted for the DS, EA's other big racing game that year, from a different studio. Wow, okay, be still my heart. Now that is some good Garbo. What Kacey was able to find, and I'm skipping over a lot of details here, go watch her video if you want to learn more, is basically when EA gave their GBA teams DS assignments, they were blindsided by how much beefier the DS actually was. And with tight budgets and timetables, they essentially turned in GBA games on the DS. And that's what this is, a rushed slop job that could have maybe been alright. I mean, these are the people that put Kill Switch, a third-person, cover-based shooter on the GBA. You're telling me they couldn't make a decent Burnout game on DS with some more time? Exhibit C, another EA DS racing game that came out in 2005, Need for Speed Underground 2. Look at this. This is great, right? Well, it was released 6 months after all of the console versions. But the DS port of Need for Speed Most Wanted pushed out day and date with the rest of them. Burnout Legends, 2 months after the PSP version. It would appear those 2 months did not really help much. It's an easy target, I know, but it feels like EA is the villain here. Remember the next time you want to be like, ugh, lazy devs? No, more likely it was greedy publishers pushing unfinished games from talented developers. Alright, well let me raise the mood up. If you actually want to see what Burnout on the DS looks like, that is basically Sideswiped. And I'll be honest, yeah, sometimes I need something good and fun, like Sideswiped here, but the next time I gotta get my fix for some of that sweet trash flavored trash, I will play some more Burnout Legends on the DS, or maybe we'll dive into Most Wanted. Thank you for the tip, Kacey. I originally wanted this video to be a lot longer, but people were vocal that they'd rather have smaller videos if it meant more videos. And you know what? I've gotten into a rut of making huge, massive projects and gotten a little rusty with actually finishing projects. So if you'd like a follow-up, I've got footage and research and some working drafts on like 7 other games. Yes, this video is originally going to have 10 games. I would have never finished it. But I can't say enough how much I love my Patreon supporters or anyone who is still watching me. I'm getting back on my groove. You are going to see a lot more Uncle Derek in the future, trust on that. It is only $2 to support the Patreon and get access to the Discord and an exclusive show, but I'm just thrilled that you are watching to this point of the video, so thank you so much. I'm gonna get back to work. Remember though, if you want to appreciate video games for everything that they are worth, you gotta scrape the bottom of that barrel. You gotta embrace that Garbo amazing lifestyle. I am Uncle Derek, this is Stop Skeletons from Fighting, and I will see you again really soon. Thank you.